10 on Sports Central will be going over a college football game preview on one of the crucial matchups coming up in Week 10 of this 2020 season, and that's going to be between Florida and Georgia. And this is always a big matchup between both these teams every season in determining who's going to win the SEC East. And I definitely think there's a good chance whichever team wins this game could go on to represent the SEC East in the championship game once we get to that point. But today we're going to be going over a full game preview and prediction on this game, starting out with your team trends. Last week, Florida beat Missouri 41-17. Great win for the Gators there. Obviously, Missouri is not a very good team this season, but still, a 41-17 win is certainly a pretty good win. Georgia had a close game against Kentucky, but they still got the win 14-3. So obviously, Georgia didn't look as clean as they have in the past and in that matchup against Kentucky, but still, win's a win. Georgia got the win there. As for records for both these teams, Florida's 3-1, and then Georgia's 4-1. Both teams with one-game winning streaks heading into this matchup. This game's going to be on Saturday, November 7th, 3:30 p.m. Eastern in Jacksonville, Florida. So this game is actually in a neutral location for both of these teams, as it always is. We never see a team at home for this matchup, so it should make for an interesting game here. Spread currently says Georgia by 4.5. ESPN FPI also says Georgia 64%. And the Vegas prediction is actually going on Florida's side, 22-21, being the final score prediction right now as for the Vegas prediction. So 2 out of the 3 have Georgia here in a moderate scoring game, and with Georgia taking control for the most part. But once again, this is still being recorded pretty early on in the week, so we could easily see the spread and everything like that change as the week goes on. But here's your stat comparison for this one. Florida's currently sitting with 42 points per game, which is a great stat. I think that's probably one of the best rates in the entire college football world right now. However, they do have 29 points allowed per game, which really is not all that good, especially in comparison to Georgia, who's only allowed 16 points per game on average. So for Florida, they also have 342 pass yards a game, 133 rush yards. Then for yards allowed, Florida's got 300 even for pass yards and then 133 for rush yards. So the passing defense for Florida definitely could be better. Allowing 300 on average pass yards per game through however many games they've had so far is not very good. So Florida's definitely going to need to improve that if they're going to get past Georgia here. And as for Georgia, they got 29 points per game, which is significantly less than Florida's. But then again, they do have 13 points less allowed per game. So that does kind of balance out there. But Georgia does have 228 pass yards a game, 175 rush yards. They do average more rush yards, and 220 pass yards allowed, and then 80 rush yards allowed per game. So on the defensive side, Georgia definitely is the better team so far. And we've seen Florida. Florida's a great team, but their defense has not been as good as it typically is. And this season they've allowed a significant amount of points to several opponents, which they definitely shouldn't be. Like, for example, they should not have allowed Ole Miss to score 35 points on them. Ole Miss is easily one of the worst teams in the SEC right now, I would say. And for them to allow 35 points to a team like that is not very convincing. However, that still was in the first game of the season, so that was a long time ago, and a lot has changed since then. But that's kind of the bottom line here, is that their defense needs to be playing better if they're going to be a national contender. But as for the rest of the schedule for Florida, they beat Missouri 41-17 on the road. Once again, I'd consider that to be a pretty good win, especially considering they were off for 3 weeks between the Texas A&M and Missouri games. They did lose to Texas A&M 38-41, which obviously was not a very good loss there. And obviously they should have won that game, but it was still close. A 3-point loss is not really something to be upset about. That's definitely going to be pretty detrimental to their chances of making the college football playoff, but still, Texas A&M and Kellen Mond is a team that I think still has potential to have a good season, and they are a top 10 team right now. So honestly, in the end, that does not look like all that terrible of a loss, but they did beat South Carolina 38-24 as well on October 3rd. So bottom line for Florida, and they're looking pretty good. It was just that loss against Texas A&M that is lingering on their schedule right now. As for the Georgia side, they beat Kentucky 14-3. They had a loss to second-ranked Alabama on October 17th, 24-41. And Alabama's a great team right now. I think they're definitely my favorite to win the SEC right now. They've got all the talent in the world. They've got Mac Jones at quarterback. They had a shutout last week to Mississippi State. Alabama's looking hot right now, and especially after having a win or a loss like that to Alabama, that's going to be a tough one for Georgia, but Alabama's looking great right now. So honestly, it's not, it was a little bit expected. But as far as it goes, on October 10th, they did beat Tennessee. They were ranked 14th in the nation at that time. 44-21 was the final score there. And they also had a big win against Auburn, 27-6, which obviously for Auburn and Tennessee, they do not look near as good as we thought they were at the beginning of the season. But still, those are 2 good wins there against 2 somewhat good teams. And they also beat Arkansas 37-10 And looking back at how Arkansas has actually been playing pretty well this season, 37-10 is a pretty good score against a team like Arkansas. So all around, I think Georgia is probably looking like the better team here statistically. But some key points for this one: winner will likely win the SEC East and likely be a college football playoff contender. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, this is always a huge matchup between both of these teams, a big rivalry game as well. And it's very, very likely, once again, that we do see the winner of this game go on to win the SEC East. So, yeah, that's something that you do have to watch out for here. And this is definitely the biggest game for both these teams up until this point, and arguably the best or the biggest game in the nation up until this point in the season. I mean, you got two teams that are definitely college football playoff contenders right now. Winner goes on and has a very good chance to make it to the playoff. Meanwhile, the loser, I mean, it's gonna be really tough for the loser, because then the loser of this game will be at 2 losses, which is certainly not a thing that you want if you're wanting to make it to a good spot in the postseason. So I do expect a moderate scoring game here. I think both offenses being really good as they are, and with Kyle Trask and Stetson Bennett going head-to-head, this should be more of a moderate to a high-scoring game. I mean, usually in the SEC we see more defensive games, but this season's been an exception. We've seen a lot of high-scoring games out of the SEC so far. So I think this will be more of a moderate-scoring game, but Florida's going to get the win. I've got Florida pulling the upset here against the Bulldogs in the end, and it's going to sound crazy right now, and many of your Georgia fans are probably going to completely disagree with me here, but I think Kyle Trask in Florida, I mean, Kyle Trask is the better quarterback all around than Stetson Bennett. Bennett's just got an interception problem. He has not been completely accurate, and that's kind of expected because he's a second-string quarterback, basically, considering Georgia's quarterback was supposed to be Jamie Newman until he transferred away. And so Georgia is stuck with a quarterback that is good. Like, don't get me wrong, Stetson Bennett is a good quarterback, but he's not an elite quarterback. He is not able to be as good as, for example, Kyle Trask. Once again, I think Kyle Trask is a much better quarterback in comparison to Stetson Bennett. And as far as it goes on the defensive side, Georgia is going to have the better defense out of the two. But I think Florida breaks the Georgia defense, and I think Florida ends up getting the win here, 28-24. But I will say as well, this game is going to be extremely close. I could easily see either team winning this matchup. I mean, Georgia's got the talent here to be able to pull out a win easily. So do not, I mean, I wouldn't make any big bets on this game if you're into betting at all, because I mean, this is going to be a 50-50 matchup. I think Florida just comes out with the win in the end and gets a touchdown late to pull ahead. But yeah, Florida, I think in the end is going to get the win here. I think as far as it goes with the offenses too, I mean, I trust the Florida offense much more than the Georgia offense. I mean, Georgia's got a great rushing game. They've, once again, Bennett, who's a quarterback that is still on the rise. But I think Florida, once again, I'm just more confident in this Gator team right now. And I think even though they do have a loss to Texas A&M and Kellen Mond is a good team, and it was only a 3-point loss. Meanwhile, Georgia lost by 17 to Alabama. I don't know. I'm pretty split on this decision, but I'm going with Florida in the end. 28-24 is the final score here, but do let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup. If you disagree with anything here, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll try to get back to as many of your guys' responses as possible. But once again, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. If you enjoyed this video, slap a like on it, subscribe as well, and I will see you all later.